Let's start. 241, Chapter 18 Number Analysis. To help decide what's risky and what's safe, who's trustworthy and who's not, we look for social evidence. From an evolutionary view, following the group is almost always positive for our prospects of survival. If everyone's doing it, it must be a sensible thing to do, explains famous psychologist and best-selling writer of Influence, Robert Cialdini. Influence Robert Cialdini. While we can frequently see this today in product reviews, even subtler cues within the environment can signal trustworthiness. Consider this: when you visit a local restaurant, are they busy? Is there a line outside or is it easy to find a seat? It is a hassle to wait, but a line can be a powerful cue that the food's tasty, and these seats are in demand. More often than not, it's good to adopt the practices of those around you. We tend to feel safe and secure in numbers when we decide how to act, particularly when faced with uncertain conditions. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 241, Chapter 18 Number 01. It's not news to anyone that we judge others based on their clothes. In general, studies that investigate these judgments find that people prefer clothing that matches expectations. Surgeons in scrubs, little boys in blue with one notable exception. A series of studies published in an article in June 2014 in the Journal of Consumer Research explored observers' reactions to people who broke established norms only slightly. Journal of Consumer Research 20146. In one scenario, a man at a black tie affair was viewed as having higher status and competence when wearing a red bow tie. The researchers also found that valuing uniqueness increased audience members' ratings of the status and competence of a professor who wore red sneakers while giving a lecture. The results suggest that people judge these slight deviations from the norm as positive because they suggest that the individual is powerful enough to risk the social costs of such behaviors. A series of studies show that people view an individual positively when the individual only slightly challenges the norm for what people should wear. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 241, Chapter 18 Number 02. Nearly 8 of 10 U.S. adults believe there are good foods and bad foods. 108. Unless we're talking about spoiled stew, poison mushrooms, or something similar, however, no foods can be labeled as either good or bad. There are, however, combinations of foods that add up to a healthful or unhealthful diet. Consider the case of an adult who eats only foods thought of as good, for example, raw broccoli, apples, orange juice, boiled tofu, and carrots. Although all these foods are nutrient-dense, they do not add up to a healthy diet because they don't supply a wide enough variety of the nutrients we need. Or take the case of the teenager who occasionally eats fried chicken, but otherwise stays away from fried foods. The occasional fried chicken isn't going to knock his or her diet off track. But the person who eats fried foods every day, with few vegetables or fruits, and loads up on supersized soft drinks, candy, and chips for snacks has a bad diet. Unlike the common belief, defining foods as good or bad is not appropriate. In fact, a healthy diet is determined largely by what the diet is composed of. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 241, Chapter 18 Number 03. One of the most powerful tools to find meaning in our lives is reflective journaling, thinking back on and writing about what has happened to us. In the 1990s, Stanford University researchers asked undergraduate students on spring break to journal about their most important personal values and their daily activities. 1990 Stanford University. Others were asked to write about only the good things that happened to them in the day. 3 weeks later, the students who had written about their values were happier, healthier, and more confident about their ability to handle stress than the ones who had only focused on the good stuff. 3. By reflecting on how their daily activities supported their values, students had gained a new perspective on those activities and choices. Little stresses and hassles were now demonstrations of their values in action. Suddenly, their lives were full of meaningful activities. And all they had to do was reflect and write about it, positively reframing their experiences with their personal values. Journaling about daily activities based on what we believe to be worthwhile can make us feel that our life is meaningful by rethinking our experiences in a new way. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 241, Chapter 18, Number 04. My colleagues and I ran an experiment testing 2 different messages meant to convince thousands of resistant alumni to make a donation. One message emphasized the opportunity to do good, donating would benefit students, faculty, and staff. The other emphasized the opportunity to feel good, donors would enjoy the warm glow of giving. The 2 messages were equally effective. In both cases, 6.5% of the unwilling alumni ended up donating. 6.5%. Then we combined them, because 2 reasons are better than 1. Except they weren't. When we put the 2 reasons together, the giving rate dropped below 3%. 3%. Each reason alone was more than twice as effective as the 2 combined. The audience was already skeptical. When we gave them different kinds of reasons to donate, we triggered their awareness that someone was trying to persuade them, and they shielded themselves against it. In the experiment mentioned above, when the 2 different reasons to donate were given simultaneously, the audience was less likely to be convinced because they could recognize the intention to persuade them. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 241, Chapter 18, Number 05. The common blackberry, Rubus alleginensis, has an amazing ability to move manganese from one layer of soil to another using its roots. Common blackberry, Rubus alleginensis. This may seem like a funny talent for a plant to have, but it all becomes clear when you realize the effect it has on nearby plants. Manganese can be very harmful to plants, especially at high concentrations. Common blackberry is unaffected by damaging effects of this metal and has evolved 2 different ways of using manganese to its advantage. Common blackberry. First, it redistributes manganese from deeper soil layers to shallow soil layers using its roots as a small pipe. Second, it absorbs manganese as it grows, concentrating the metal in its leaves. When the leaves drop and decay, their concentrated manganese deposits further poison the soil around the plant. For plants that are not immune to the toxic effects of manganese, this is very bad news. Essentially, the common blackberry eliminates competition by poisoning its neighbors with heavy metals. Common blackberry. The common blackberry has an ability to increase the amount of manganese in the surrounding upper soli, which makes the nearby soil quite deadly for other plants. Common blackberry. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 241, Chapter 18, Number 06. There is often a lot of uncertainty in the realm of science, which the general public finds uncomfortable. They don't want informed guesses, they want certainties that make their lives easier, and science is often unequipped to meet these demands. In particular, the human body is fantastically complex, and some scientific answers can never be provided in black or white terms. All this is why the media tends to oversimplify scientific research when presenting it to the public. In their eyes, they're just giving people what they want as opposed to offering more accurate but complex information that very few people will read or understand. A perfect example of this is how people want definitive answers as to which foods are good and bad. Scientifically speaking, there are no good and bad foods, rather, food quality exists on a continuum, meaning that some foods are better than others when it comes to general health and well-being. With regard to general health, science, by its nature, does not satisfy the public's demands for certainty, which leads to the media giving less complicated answers to the public. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 241, Chapter 18, Number 07. Nancy Lowry and David Johnson conducted an experiment to study a teaching environment where 5th and 6th graders were assigned to interact on a topic. Nancy Lowry, David Johnson 5-6. With one group, the discussion was led in a way that built an agreement. With the second group, the discussion was designed to produce disagreements about the right answer. Students who easily reached an agreement were less interested in the topic, studied less, and were less likely to visit the library to get additional information. The most noticeable difference, though, was revealed when teachers showed a special film about the discussion topic during lunchtime. Only 18% of the agreement group missed lunchtime to see the film, but 45% of the students from the disagreement group stayed for the film. 1845. The thirst to fill a knowledge gap to find out who was right within the group can be more powerful than the thirst for slides and jungle gyms. According to the experiment above, students' interest in a topic increases when they are encouraged to differ. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 241, Chapter 18, Number 08. A woman named Rhonda who attended the University of California at Berkeley had a problem. Berkeley, California. Rhonda. She was living near campus with several other people, none of whom knew one another. When the cleaning people came each weekend, they left several rolls of toilet paper in each of the 2 bathrooms. However, by Monday all the toilet paper would be gone. It was a classic tragedy of the commons situation. Because some people took more toilet paper than their fair share, the public resource was destroyed for everyone else. After reading a research paper about behavior change, Rhonda put a note in one of the bathrooms asking people not to remove the toilet paper, as it was a shared item. Rhonda. To her great satisfaction, one roll reappeared in a few hours, and another the next day. In the other note-free bathroom, however, there was no toilet paper until the following weekend, when the cleaning people returned. A small reminder brought about a change in the behavior of the people who had taken more of the shared goods than they needed. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 241, Chapter 18, Number 09. In one study, researchers asked pairs of strangers to sit down in a room and chat. In half of the rooms, a cell phone was placed on a nearby table, in the other half, no phone was present. After the conversations had ended, the researchers asked the participants what they thought of each other. Here's what they learned: when a cell phone was present in the room, the participants reported the quality of their relationship was worse than those who talked in a cell phone-free room. The pairs who talked in the rooms with cell phones thought their partners showed less empathy. Think of all the times you've sat down to have lunch with a friend and set your phone on the table. You might have felt good about yourself because you didn't pick it up to check your messages, but your unchecked messages were still hurting your connection with the person sitting across from you. The presence of a cell phone weakens the connection between people involved in conversations, even when the phone is being ignored. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 241, Chapter 18, Number 10. In their study in 2007, Catherine Kinsler and her colleagues at Harvard showed that our tendency to identify with an in-group to a large degree begins in infancy and may be innate. 2007 Catherine Kinsler. Kinsler and her team took a bunch of 5-month-olds whose families only spoke English and showed the babies 2 videos. Kinsler 5. In one video, a woman was speaking English. In the other, a woman was speaking Spanish. Then they were shown a screen with both women side by side, not speaking. In infant psychology research, the standard measure for affinity or interest is attention. Babies will apparently stare longer at the things they like more. In Kinsler's study, the babies stared at the English speakers longer. Kinsler. In other studies, researchers have found that infants are more likely to take a toy offered by someone who speaks the same language as them. Psychologists routinely cite these and other experiments as evidence of our built-in evolutionary preference for our own kind. Infants' more favorable responses to those who use a familiar language show that there can be an inborn tendency to prefer in-group members. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 241, Chapter 18, Number 11. One way that music could express emotion is simply through a learned association. Perhaps there is nothing naturally sad about a piece of music in a minor key, or played slowly with low notes. Maybe we have just come to hear certain kinds of music as sad because we have learned to associate them in our culture with sad events like funerals. If this view is correct, we should have difficulty interpreting the emotions expressed in culturally unfamiliar music. Totally opposed to this view is the position that the link between music and emotion is one of resemblance. For example, when we feel sad we move slowly and speak slowly and in a low-pitched voice. Thus when we hear slow, low music, we hear it as sad. If this view is correct, we should have little difficulty understanding the emotion expressed in culturally unfamiliar music. It is believed that emotion expressed in music can be understood through a culturally learned association, or it can be understood due to the similarity between music and emotion. MTC. Good job. MTC. Let's start. 241, Chapter 18, Number 12. Have you noticed that some coaches get the most out of their athletes while others don't? A poor coach will tell you what you did wrong and then tell you not to do it again. Don't drop the ball. What happens next? The images you see in your head are images of you dropping the ball. Naturally, your mind recreates what it just saw based on what it's been told. Not surprisingly, you walk on the court and drop the ball. What does the good coach do? He or she points out what could be improved, but will then tell you how you could or should perform. I know you'll catch the ball perfectly this time. Sure enough, the next image in your mind is you catching the ball and scoring a goal. Once again, your mind makes your last thoughts part of reality, but this time, that reality is positive, not negative. Unlike ineffective coaches, who focus on players' mistakes, effective coaches help players improve by encouraging them to picture successful plays. MTC. Good job.